Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This week I'm just doing a continuation video of my spicy fairy tale retellings. So if you haven't seen part 1, I'll leave a link down in the description bar below. Otherwise, for part 2, I have different fairy tales to go over. I do still have, another Beauty and the Beast and another Rapunzel, but they sounded really good. I felt like you needed to know. Okay, but as far as the other ones, I have like Cinderella, Sleeping Beauty, the Nutcracker, Alice in Wonderland, things like that. So I have some fun other ones to discuss as well. So almost all of these are on KU. There's a couple that aren't, so I'll make sure to mention that. But you can get these over on Amazon, mostly on KU. Okay, let's just jump into it. For those of you who like the steam, this video is for you. If you're thinking this is going to be like a sweet sort of romance, it's not. This is going to be more of, the hot and heavy sort of romance. Okay? Cool. Let's jump into it. So as far as the first one goes, let me set this down before I spill it. The first one is In the Shadow of a Wish by Macy Aurora. I almost said Spicy Aurora. Oh my God, Macy Aurora. And this is really, I think we're going to relate it more to the Genie from Aladdin. But as far as the synopsis goes, it sounds like we're going to be in another world. We're in this realm where women have to be married by the time that they're 26. If they're not, they're going to be forced into a marriage. And there's this girl who has a family full of sisters. And she just wants to help them make sure they have a good life. She wants them to have love. She doesn't want to have them be in this terrible predicament. So she's trying to find a way to save them. And she stumbles across this key, this magical key in the forest. And she comes to find that inside is a god, all right? A god. And he has to grant her 3 wishes. He's essentially trapped in the key. He has to grant her 3 wishes of whatever she wants. And she just wants to help her family. So she's seeing this as like her way out, how to save her sisters. And this god is basically coming out, sounds like he's going to be a little bit of an ass. He might kind of be a villainish character. He comes out with a bunch of animosity because he's had a bunch of key holders before and no one's freed him, and they've all promised that they will. So he doesn't see her as being anything different, right? So he has to grant her her wishes, and he's also kind of learning that maybe not all key holders are the same. All right? So that's what the synopsis is. It sounds really good. It sounds really promising. In the actual reviews, there's 46 that I saw on Amazon, and it has a 4.2 star rating. A lot of people talk about her world building is great. Her writing's really good. The sex that she wrote is good, which I really hope so. I'm so picky when it comes to that. But it has like this forced proximity element to it. There's a magical labyrinth, which sounds really cool. And a lot of people just mentioned that they were smiling the whole time they read the book. So I'm in, man. I am in. It's definitely spicy. So even though people were smiling, they also mentioned that it is spicy. So this sounds good. It's In the Shadow of a Wish by Macy Aurora, based off of like the Genie in Aladdin. All right? This one is on KU, by the way. Now moving on, number 2. So for this book, this is actually based off of the Nutcracker. It sounds like it's going to be more of a dark fantasy, heavy spice sort of book. And it's called A Court of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kenny, which I think I have her on this list multiple times. But it sounds really good. It sounds really interesting. So I've never read a Nutcracker retelling, but this particular story, the synopsis goes something like this. But we have our 2 female characters, Louisa and Clara, and something happens to where they have to go live in their godfather's mansion, and some sort of accident ensues to where this doll ends up kind of coming to life. And they find out that it's actually a fae prince that has been trapped inside of this doll. And they go through this journey actually getting into the fae realm, trying to break this curse, it sounds like. But it sounds like there's kind of like 2 romances going on simultaneously. So the fae prince that's trapped into the doll, he's in love with one of the girls, or he's going to fall in love with her, because it sounds a little bit enemies to lovers-ish. It sounds like they kind of bicker and fight all the time, but there's definitely a connection. And then for our other female character, it sounds like she comes across the sugar plum fairy who just kind of wants to give her all of his delights. Okay, so obviously this is spicy. But during this entire journey of getting to the Fae realm and them dealing with their own relationships, it also sounds like there's a rat king that's trying to actually take over this Fae realm. So that's intriguing. Part of me is kind of like, is anybody going to love the rat king? Okay. Is anybody going to love the rat king? But that's all I know so far. It sounds good. It sounds like it could be fun. A lot of people mentioned in the comments that it's really good. It's a fun read. It's dark for sure. It definitely has to deal with like gore and monsters and violence. It sounds like there's primal play. Yeah, there was primal play in this one. People said it had really good plot, so that's nice. I don't like just having like a pure smut-driven book. I need some plot to sink my teeth into, and it sounds like this one actually has some. So that's good, or has a good chunk of it, really. But again, this is called A Court of Sugar and Spice by Rebecca F. Kenny. This had a 4.2 star rating out of 687 ratings in general. So there's a good chance this is good, you guys, a good chance. This is on KU. Again, this is probably one of the spicier books on the list from what I can tell. So moving on, number 3. All right, so for this one, this is actually based off of The Little Mermaid. It is a duology. It sounds like it's kind of flipped gender roles on its head, so this one is very interesting to me. But it's a dark fantasy romance, and it's called A Teeth in the Tide by, again, Rebecca F. Kenny. So hopefully she's going to be like an author of mine, because honestly, she has a lot of books that sound very, very good. So fingers crossed. But this sounds like what we get out of the synopsis here is there's kind of 2 chunks going on. First, our girl, she lives, it sounds like on an island. They're all human. And she lives in this town where it sounds like the mermaids are kind of like entrapped this island and they like to eat people. Yeah, that sounds exciting. But they ate her father. So, you know, she's pissed. She wants revenge. There's also a captain who he keeps making eyes at her and he's going to end up helping her, but I think he's going to come into play with the mermaids. We'll talk in a second about that. But she also has this scientific driven cousin where this trio sort of comes together and they want to exact revenge on the mermaids. So there's that first chunk that we can sink our teeth into. And then the second chunk is there's this male mermaid, merman, whatever you want to call him. And he was a part of like the reverse harem that goes on in this mermaid culture. And he's given this son, or his son, to take care of, one of his sons. And he goes to a sea witch to make sure he has a better life. So that's where I think he comes in. I have a feeling he's going to end up being the captain that's making eyes at our girl. We'll see. But it sounds good. It sounds really good. There's only 46 ratings in total, but out of those 46, this has a 4.5 star rating. So there's very good potential. A lot of people said this is really intense, that it's very gripping. It is a duology, like I mentioned, so it ends on a cliffhanger in the first book, but it deals with, like, there's some heavy stuff. There's going to be abuse, there's PTSD, violence, cannibalism, which I'm excited for that part. I'm a weirdo. I like the spice and I like the gory cannibalistic stuff. I don't know what that says about me. But it sounds really good. It's on KU. Go check it out. I'm very excited to read this one. Hopefully it's good, you guys. Okay? But that's it. That's all I'll talk about. But that's The Teeth in the Tide by Rebecca F. Kenny, which both books are out, by the way. So just so you know. Moving on. Number 4. So for this book, this is actually based off of Alice in Wonderland. I'm excited about it, but also very nervous. I'm not gonna lie. I can't get a ton of way of plot from the synopsis, but there's a lot of reviews mentioning that this is actually a good story. There's also some other people saying that this is very, very smutty, so be aware of that. All right, but this is A Queen of Monsters and Madness? No, sorry, A Queen of Mirrors and Madness by Jocelyn Keyes. This is on KU. This is a very spicy, definitely a adult book. But for the synopsis, like I said, there's not a ton of plot, but what I can tell is it's a dark fantasy. Alice, or Allison, but she's in an insane asylum, essentially. And she has been to Wonderland before, but she can't remember it. And so she ends up somehow getting back there. And there's these 4 characters, you may know them: the Cheshire Cat, the White Rabbit, the Hare, and the Mad Hatter. They've been with her before, and they're upset that she has left. So now that she is back, they're not letting her go. There's very much some like touch her and die vibes. And definitely, you know, they're a little bit insane, and they also don't know the word no. So keep that in mind. But it sounds like when she goes back there, she's finding out that there's some sort of sickness that is spreading that is making people mad. And it sounds like it's coming from the Queen of Hearts. So she's going to be the key. She has some form of magic to help get rid of this sickness and really bring the realm back to what it used to be. So that's our plot. That's all we really get. But people mentioned that the world building is really good, which is cool because it's Wonderland. So you know that this could be a fun place to be. And then there's other people who just mentioned that it's like 3 chapters straight of just pure smut. So we're just going to have to see how we're feeling about it. You know, I'm the type of person where I need to have a plot. I can't have it just purely be smut. But if it's like 3 chapters, I can handle that. Hopefully it's just written well. But that's it. That's our Alice in Wonderland retelling, A Queen of Mirrors and Madness by Jocelyn Keyes. Hopefully it's good. I'm keeping my fingers crossed. We'll see how it goes. So, moving on. Now this is actually our Cinderella retelling, and this is actually called Immortelle by Rebecca Massey, which I believe I've actually mentioned this author before. But this one's really intriguing, honestly. So again, still a spicy book. It's on KU. It sounds like essentially, in the synopsis, it's kind of Cinderella has already gotten her happy ever after, and she's been married. But it's after the happily ever after. Are they still happy? Really is the question. So essentially Cinderella's finding, now that she's married to Prince Charming, that she doesn't like life at court. It's all this kind of this pageantry and games, and she hates it. So she ends up befriending some misfits that are part of the court, and they kind of teach her, if you know how to play the game, you can actually have a fulfilling, good life and not be bored out of your mind, from what it sounds like. So it's kind of about her saving herself from this sort of situation. Prince Charming, it sounds like he becomes more and more hostile, and she ends up having an affair with some other character. I don't know who it would be. I don't know if there's any like crossover of fairy tales, but we shall see. It sounds good. I'm excited. I'm intrigued. Obviously, I want to know who she's having her affair with. But it sounds cool. She saves herself, man. You know, and it's talking about after they got married. See if life is as good as we all thought it would be. So I'm intrigued by this. I think it could be fun. It does mention it's very steamy, and there's also definitely some murder and some mayhem to this. So hell yeah, I don't picture Cinderella as being a murderer, but I will now. So yeah, that's Immortelle by Rebecca Massey. Very excited about that one. It has 4.5 star rating out of only like 50 ratings, but that's still pretty good. Hopefully it's a good time. So moving on, number 6. Okay, this next one, I'm not gonna lie, this is the one I'm most excited about. Well, maybe, I don't know. Okay, I'm very excited about this one. However, I'm also insanely nervous because this has the lowest ratings out of all of them. This has 3.8 stars. So I'm a little nervous, but it has a really cool blurb. So this is our Sleeping Beauty retelling. It's called A Prisoner of Silk by Lydia Foxglove. And the little blurb that I'm talking about, it says that it's a Sleeping Beauty retelling, but it's also kind of mirroring Marie Antoinette's life. So that hooked me, all right? That worked very well. I'm hoping that is true. But essentially, the synopsis, the way it goes, the plot sounds good. Oh, but the plot, essentially, it sounds like we have a human girl who had the traditional Sleeping Beauty sort of curse on her, where when she's 16, she's going to prick her finger on a spindle, and she's going to make the realm fall asleep. Well, that comes and goes. She didn't end up pricking her finger, but she's still cursed. So no one wants her, all right? Years pass. Finally, this Fae prince comes along. So we're dealing with the Fae, the fairies. He comes along and he decides he wants this cursed woman. And so she comes back to his world, his court, and no one likes her. She's a human. Everyone's expecting her to mess everything up. Everyone's waiting for her to make a mistake. And she's never allowed to have any privacy, like ever. So she never gets a moment alone, nothing. Okay, so that's driving her kind of mad. And she has to do whatever the prince wants because he gives her protection, because she is a human. People, the other fairies, want nothing to do with her. And that's sort of his price, is you have to give me whatever I want, and in turn, I will make sure you're always protected. So, interesting sort of concepts there. And it also sounds like the witch who cursed her is still following her. So perhaps the curse of making the realm all fall asleep is still a very big potential possibility, right? It didn't have to be when she was 16. Who knows? So the witch obviously wants to use her in some form and fashion. And she's trying to figure out how the heck she can gain her freedom, how she can get out of this madness. And so she learns how to play the game, how to work the court, and when she's able to break the rules. So it sounds good. Oh, I'm really hoping that I somehow have a higher rating for this than 3.8, but we'll see, you guys. We'll see. But I am very excited about that one. Okay, moving on. Our last two, it has to do with Rapunzel and Beauty and the Beast. So I know I've already given you recommendations for those, but these sound good too. So let's get into it. All right, so this next one, this is our Rapunzel retelling, okay? This is called Twisted from Renee Rocco, and it is a duology, just so you know, so it is probably going to end on a cliffhanger. But this had pretty good reviews. It was 4 stars out of 505. This is definitely spicy. It's a why choose sort of moment. But it's very classic in the sense of Rapunzel stuck in a tower. She's essentially being trapped by a witch, and her father, the king, is trying to search everywhere to try and find her. But instead of Prince Charming coming to find her, we have this morally gray sort of dude coming in. Maybe potentially a villain who ends up getting her out of that tower, but instead of taking her back to the king, he takes her to his dilapidated castle, where he has all these renegades that help take care of her, if you know what I mean. So it sounds interesting. It sounds like it's going to be a dark fantasy. Again, it is a why choose, so definitely going to be very spicy. It talks about how it's kind of going from friends to enemies and then enemies to lovers. So it sounds like it's probably going to be a little bit of a slow burn. We're going to be developing our relationships through here. And it's definitely our captive sort of vibe. And it sounds like there's a revenge plot within this. I don't quite know where the revenge is going to. If it's going to end up being towards her father or towards the witch or what. Or maybe one of these renegades is like a terrible dude. I'm not entirely sure yet, but this sounds good. It has great potential. It has 4 stars out of 505 ratings. So I'm hoping, fingers crossed, that this will be a fun one. So I'm very excited about it. But again, this is Twisted. It is a duology. Both are out by Renee Rocco. And this one is on KU. All right, cool. Let's go to our last one, our Beauty and the Beast retelling. All right, so this one, oh, so excited. I love Beauty and the Beast, so this is one I'm just very, very excited about. But this is called Bend Her by Cassie Alexander. It sounds so good. The plot, ooh, sounds like there's good plot in here. But essentially what's going on, this is definitely a retelling / reimagining. So it doesn't copy everything, which is kind of cool. So our girl, she has been kidnapped, all right? And it sounds like that starts off in the beginning, so there's really good pacing in this book. But she's been kidnapped and she ends up being thrown on the doorstep of our beast, who is actually a mage. I don't know if he is a beast in the sense of just like his characteristics between like what he looks like as a human mage and his just sort of personality, or if he's like a beast mage, which I'm kind of hoping for that one. But she's thrown on his doorstep and he sees her and he's like, oh my God, I know who you are, in his head. Because when he was going through his ascension of becoming a mage, they all get these sort of visions. And he saw her in his vision, and he knows that she is the woman that is going to kill him. So he's, gonna have some animosity, but apparently at the same time he sees her and he's just awestruck by her beauty and whatnot. So he knows where their relationship is going. She doesn't. She's kidnapped. So we have the captive vibes. We have the forced proximity vibes. She's upset. She's mad. It sounds like her father is still in trouble in some form and fashion, but it's not in relation to the beast. He's off somewhere else in trouble. So she ends up, even though she's the captive of the beast, she ends up being like, you know what? Hey, can you maybe help me? Can you teach me magic? So it's about them coming together. He knows that she's going to be his undoing to the point where she's going to kill him. And she wants to kind of use him to figure out how to use magic, right? So good. It sounds so good. But this is a trilogy. The other 2 books sounds like they're not out yet, but I think the second book's coming out soon. I'll leave a date here if I figure that out. But it sounds really good. People said it's really addictive. It's definitely a dark romance. It's a slow burn, but it is steamy. So I feel like we're going to get some angst going on. Yeah, other than that, one thing. Yeah, I've never seen Howl's Moving Castle, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it or read it. I don't know. But a lot of people said this felt like Beauty and the Beast meets Howl's Moving Castle. So if that excites you, there's that. So yeah, that's Ben-Hur by Cassie Alexander. Very excited about this one. All right, that's it. That's it. Those are my fairy tale retellings. I'm sure I will end up probably finding more, knowing me, because I always just like to look at stuff. I'm also a cover whore, by the way, so I like a good cover. But yeah, those are my fairy tale retellings. I hope you found some good ones. I hope some sound good to you as well. If you've read any of them and you have any, thoughts, please let me know. But otherwise, I will see you guys next week. I hope you liked this. Please leave a thumbs up if you did. If you want to subscribe, I don't know. Cool. Otherwise, you guys have a great rest of your week, and I'll catch you later. Bye.